Hey, everybody. Welcome to TPH Live. If you're new, where have you been this whole time, first of all? Second, welcome. That's second. The guilt is first. If you're new, we do about 5 minutes of meditation, maybe a little bit more. We're getting a little loosey-goosey around the timing these days. And then we take your questions, and every day we get a great meditation teacher. Today's teacher is Sebene Selassie, one of the most popular teachers on the 10% Happier app, and an author and a longtime Buddhist student and meditator. And hi, Seb, how are you?
Hi, Dan. I'm good. Nice to see you.
Likewise. So you had this idea that a really festive thing to do heading into the long holiday weekend was to talk today about death. So explain yourself.
Woohoo, death. Yeah. So I want to talk about illness and death because so many of us are kind of gripped with the fear and anxiety about our health, our well-being, and even our mortality. And we live in a culture that actually really rails against that. Contemporary culture basically says that getting sick is a mistake, growing old is a mistake, and that somehow we can defy dying. So these natural parts of life are really in our face right now with what's going on with the pandemic. And for some of us, we have barely or maybe never really encountered the truth of these realities in such an intense way.
I'm foursquare in your camp on the importance of talking about death, and I don't think it is morbid. I think it can revivify your attitude about being alive, which is useful heading into a long holiday weekend. Just as we're talking about this subject, I want to recommend. There was one of the best Dharma talks I've ever heard in person or anywhere was delivered by this guy, Greg Scharf, who I don't think I've ever met, but he's a longtime teacher at the Insight Meditation Society. Yeah. You can find this talk if you just go on dharmaseed.org and then look under Greg Scharf. You probably have to search around a little bit. Anyway, he gave this hilarious talk about death and how it really does. Once you have death on your shoulder, so to speak, it can wake you up to the vitality of the present moment. But he was talking about just what you were about, just the way you were about how we don't want to look at it in Western culture. And he said, in our culture, in some ways, getting old, getting ill, dying is the ultimate in bad taste.
Yeah. Well, we can even think of being a cancer survivor. I didn't experience this, but I remember films where it would be a family scene and people would hush, like say, she has cancer,
Yes.
That it's something to whisper. And there was a sense that it's distasteful to experience these realities of life. And just as you're saying, in fact, it's the very opposite, that when we're kind of gripped in fear or resistance, we can't really open in a relaxed way to the beauties of life because we're constantly trying to push away these things we don't want. And when we actually open to these natural parts of life, we're open to all of life, its joys and its sorrows, its pleasure and its pain, its beauty and its difficulties.
Right. Well said. I think the movie you're referencing is Annie Hall, the Woody Allen movie from the 1970s, which I think was the first comedy ever to win Best Picture. And I believe there's a moment in there where his mother, the woman playing his mother or the actor playing his mother, said, instead of using the word cancer, she just whispers it, cancer. She's got a New Jersey accent. Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely true. And another thing about old age, illness, death, and looking at it and talking about it forthrightly is it's non-negotiable. I mean, so you're in for a rude awakening if you don't want to engage with these subjects because it's, nobody gets out of here alive.
Yeah, especially death, right? So we're lucky if we get old. Like, why are we trying to resist it? Like, we've won if we get to experience old age. And some people experience not much illness in their lives, beyond just kind of some minor things and go out peacefully. But every single one of us, we have a 100% chance of dying.
Yeah. And you have experienced quite a serious series of bouts with cancer yourself, just to say.
Yeah. 3 times, twice stage 4. And as most of us know, there's no stage 5. So coming close to death like that really taught me a lot about the value of practicing with this. So today I wanted to share this practice that is a traditional Buddhist practice called the 5 daily recollections, where every day you remind yourself that you will grow ill, you will grow old, you will die, that you will lose the things that you love, and that you are, it said, heir to your actions, but really meaning that your actions have consequences. And that's as simple as understanding that, if we practice, then we can create more spaciousness in our lives and be with this. So those 4 reflections, I'd like to offer kind of a basic version of those as a meditation, and then also end with gratitude, because I feel for myself that's been an important kind of balance or counterpoint to these reflections, to be grateful for what we do have.
Great. Well, I'll mute myself and you can take it away.
Great. So I just want to mention that I live in Brooklyn, as we've talked about, and it's Memorial Day weekend, and there seem to be a lot of people getting ready for that. So you might hear music or noise from the outside, and just to be aware of that. So I just invite you to take a comfortable position. You don't need to do anything, excuse me, special or posed for this. Just make sure that you feel grounded. You might want to roll your shoulders up and back just to have a sense of openness in the chest, which is often collapsed when we're sitting at computers or desks. And just notice this body sitting here right now. Feeling the sensations in the body. You can even ask yourself, how do I know I'm sitting? What sensations let me know that I'm alive right here? Again, feeling the body, perhaps feeling the breath. An inhale or an exhale. And this is the amount of awareness that you need for this practice, just knowing that you're here, and if the mind wanders to something else, just bringing it back to the breath or body. As I offer some reflections, and you can say these reflections silently to yourself, contemplate them, or perhaps reword them. So knowing that our bodies are mortal and changing, we'll do these 5 daily recollections. I cannot escape aging. I cannot escape illness. I cannot escape death. I will lose what I love. And my actions have consequences. So considering again your life, your reality, feeling this body alive right here, right now. I cannot escape aging. I cannot escape illness. I cannot escape death. I will lose what I love. And my actions have consequences. And now letting go of those reflections, those contemplations, reconnecting again to this alive, breathing, sensing, feeling body. And we'll take a few moments to cultivate a sense of gratitude for life, for all the years we've lived, for our health, for all that we love. And I'll offer a few reflections for these contemplations of gratitude. I am thankful for my experiences. I am thankful for my health. I am thankful to be alive. I am thankful for all that I love. I'm thankful for this opportunity to practice. And by way of ending this contemplation, perhaps you want to extend out some well wishes for yourself, for those you love, for the well-being of all beings everywhere without exception. If you want to come back to the space, if your eyes were closed, you can open them.
Thank you, Seb. While we were doing that, a memory surfaced. I have a pretty close friend named Ronnie. I met him when I used to be a volunteer in a hospice here in New York City, and he's the only person I've ever heard of who lived in a hospice for 5 years, and then they sent him home.
Wow.
Still friends. I still, when before the pandemic, I still saw him a lot, and now we talk a lot on the phone. But very funny guy, and I used to bring him wings sometimes, hot wings, and I remember him eating, just chowing down. Even though he's emaciated because he's quite ill, but he was chowing down on these wings, and he said, "These are hot. They'll remind you you're alive." And I think it's worth having that reminder in your life in some ways. Otherwise, you're just on autopilot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what our practice teaches us, right? To remember how to feel and sense life fully. But if we shut ourselves down to these painful realities and truths of life, we're not going to feel the hot wings either.
That's right. All right. So Emily Jane Beck writes, if I am saying silently the mantras, but I can feel myself resisting them and almost not believing, do they still work just by repeating the practice?
There is some truth to the whole fake it till you make it reality of these kind of repetitive practices. Also, loving kindness can kind of feel repetitive and not authentic for some people. But it's really like anything else in our practice. We sort of just continually participate in this process of coming back, reconnecting, trying again. And in that way, it's no different than coming back to the breath and bringing awareness to the breath, that we're bringing awareness to these truths, even if we get distracted, even if we resist them or find some kind of contention with them.
I would just add to that, Emily. I mean, the fact that you're seeing the resistance is an important thing that you have noticed through your power of mindfulness and self-awareness. And so I think that's a part of the meditation. And as it pertains to the phrases that we do in the loving kindness practice, I've been on record with my struggles with those phrases. One of the things I like about that practice is you're not expected to feel any certain way. There's a certain faith or trust in over time that if you do the practice, and I found this to be true, that over time sometimes you will actually feel something, but maybe not. But going in expecting to feel a certain way or having some big opening is that expectation can block everything. All right, Mike Garland writes, how do you deal with the inevitability of the death of a family member?
Well, I'm not sure what Mike is referring to, if someone is actively dying or if you're contemplating that someone will eventually die. But I think we meet any range of that with our full awareness and attention. So part of what we're cultivating is this capacity to stay with our experience. And I witnessed this in different moments of people in my family dying. Some people don't want to stay with the experience. They want to turn away. They don't want to visit the dying person, or they can't really give them their full attention. They're distracting themselves. So this practice is really teaching us to be with whatever is happening. We're not trying to change the reality externally or even internally, but we're trying to create some space, some ease with whatever is arising for us and especially for this other person.
Karen Green asks, is there any way that these 5 recollections can help ease the longing for loved ones who have died?
I don't know if there's an official answer to that question, but my gut is telling me that they're sort of 2 separate practices. This is really an individual practice to help us reconcile with our own mortality, which I think then in turn helps us be with the mortality of others. But it sounds like what you're really referring to is grief, which is a whole topic unto itself. And I know that you've touched upon it on these live calls before, Dan. And in this moment, we probably should continue to talk about grief, collective grief, individual grief, and the grief for losing loved ones.
We've got only a minute or so left, and I want to do our weekly shout out to a nonprofit that we're all supporting. So stand by for a second, Seb. As I was saying, we try on Fridays to identify a nonprofit that we at 10% Happier will support, and that we encourage you to, if you feel comfortable doing so. Obviously, this is completely voluntary, but just a kind of a community building exercise. So here's the blurb for this week. Millions of Americans have been under stay-at-home orders to limit the spread of the coronavirus, but for some people, being at home can be dangerous. Police departments across the country have seen a surge in domestic violence calls since the pandemic began. In Illinois, there's been a 15% increase in calls and a 2,000% increase in text messages. A nonprofit called The Network has partnered with Airbnb and Hotel Tonight to get hotel rooms for people who need to escape a violent situation. They've placed 63 families in hotels in the past 3 weeks and need your help to keep families safe. There's a link in the video description below, so if you are up to it, feel free to check it out and give. And as I said, we are. Seb, thank you for giving your time today. Really appreciate it. It's always personally a pleasure to see you, even remotely.
Thank you. Great to see you, Dan.
Have a great holiday weekend, Seb. And on Monday, actually, no, on Tuesday, well, Monday we will not have a show because it's a long holiday weekend. On Tuesday, we'll be back with my pal Jeff Warren. In the meantime, everybody, stay home and stay safe. Stay home and stay healthy.